I could have your attention here in the media center. We are now joined by Dale Earnhardt Jr., driver of the number 88 Nationwide Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports and your defending winner of the Coke 0400. Welcome to the media center, Dale. Here at this track, you are pretty good, I hear. 4 wins, including 2 Daytona 500 victories. What is the secret to navigating this track successfully?
The first thing is you got to have a fast car, and that starts with the fabrication department, the engine shop. Crew chief's got to be sharp, knowing every little part of the car that that can influence the speed of the car. You got to just have every everything in a row there, and the car needs to be as good as it possibly can be. And that really makes the driver's job a lot easier when the car's a dominant car. I've had plenty of dominant race cars down here. And when you're out on the racetrack and you have such a good car, you sort of, you gain more and more confidence as the weekend goes through practice and into the race. And your confidence really starts to, create more opportunities. And when you're confident about your car, you're making more, you're trying more passes, trying to do more things. If you don't feel confident in your car, you might second guess a decision or not do something. Every little move you make out there sort of puts you in position to win. So I don't think it's just one thing that you do at the end of the race. I think it's from the very beginning of the race. What you're doing lap after lap is going to determine where you are at the end of the race and what position you're in and how confident you are about your situation. So it just keeps going throughout the weekend. So the car really kicks it off. If you get in there and your car's not where it needs to be or doing the things that you want it to do, it's very hard to have the confidence in it to put it where it needs to go.
Good deal. We're going to open up the floor to questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a wireless mic to you. We'll start with Mike and go here to Zach and then back to George.
Who are we starting with? Who are we starting with?
Mike. Please get a mic to Mike, please.
Mike.
Thank you.
Mike.
Mike Embry, USA Today. Dale, after Talladega, do you have any more or less concern about the possibility of flying cars here, or is it just going to be kind of a crapshoot?
Yeah, the cars are going to get airborne at these racetracks. We're going pretty fast, and in certain circumstances, they'll get airborne anywhere, really. So, if in a bad situation, there's just as much potential as here as there is at Michigan or anywhere else. We've seen cars flip at a lot of different racetracks, but I know that's been a topic of discussion for the plate tracks, particularly after Talladega. And I'm hopeful that NASCAR is looking at ways to figure out how to keep the cars on the ground. So we didn't make any changes going into this race from the package, but there are 2 different racetracks, and hopefully that will play a role in keeping things a little safer for the drivers. But we've seen them flip everywhere, and they. It's just not at the plate tracks, but we definitely didn't like what we saw at Talladega, and we'd rather not get upside down if we don't have to.
We'll go next to Zach, back to George, over to Claire, and then to Bob.
Dale, kind of to piggyback off that question, it's been a year now since Austin went into the catch fence at this race last year. Can you just take us back there as you're crossing the finish line and just kind of what you saw and what was going through your mind the first 30 seconds after it happened?
It's just frightening. In the mirror, it's hard to tell what part of his car got into the fence. You could see it go into the fence, but those fences do a lot of damage to the cars, trying to keep them inside the racetrack and out of the grandstands. So I just was worried about Austin and hoping that he was okay. And, that was, I think, everyone's initial reaction. But watching it from the a mirror, you couldn't tell whether the bottom, the bottom of the car, which is probably the best case scenario in that situation, hit the fence or the top. So I was just worried about that.
George, then Claire, then Bob, and then Nate.
Back here, Dale, George Diaz, Orlando Sentinel. Along the same lines, you've, as Matt alluded to, you've had great success at these restrictor plate tracks, particular here. But in Talladega, I remember you talking about the race, and you just said you hate it. How do you kind of reconcile, you obviously have great success, but it seems like you hate this style of racing, kind of emotionally. How do you kind of deal with those extremes, if you will?
I know, yeah. When you don't run well, you hate it. We spun out at Daytona and Talladega, and we have pretty good understanding of why our car's been unstable. We brought a new car that's hopefully going to be a much better race car for us, and we went back to our setups and theories that we were using last year that seemed to work so well. So we, the guys are always working, trying to find speed, and we had to. That really made the car unstable, so we dialed some of that back out and went back toward our older setups, and hopefully that is going to be all we need to be competitive and be able to get up there and be aggressive. But if you run up front and you finish in the top, 5, you can have a good time out there and enjoy what you're doing. But if you wreck and particularly when you wreck at these places, you wreck pretty hard. You hate it. You don't want to be in those situations where you're crashing, and it seems like that's the way plate racing is. It's either all or nothing, and there's really no middle ground. You got to get yourself out there and put yourself in some pretty wild, compromising situations that are touch and go, and if you want to go up there and win the race, you got to put yourself in some situations that are really sketchy. But sometimes in the plate racing, it's as hairy as you can stand. It's about as much excitement and nerve wracking, anxiety as you can stomach. Sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes your car's so good, you just get out front and you stay there, and we've had those kind of cars too. But it seems like to me that last year the package was a little bit different when we changed the engines a little bit. I think they changed the lifters or something in the motors, and they thought that they needed to put a smaller plate on the car for this year. And that, to me, has changed the way the cars draft a little bit. We're a little bit more, we're stuck side by side because the cars are actually down on power compared to last year. So the cars are side by side more. Passes are harder to complete. You get kind of stuck together and fighting, side drafting each other, and not really completing the passes that we saw us completing last year. And that leads to more bumping and pushing because guys are stuck side by side more often, so guys are looking for help more often, and guys are in position to push people more often because they didn't complete the passes that they were completing last year. So that's the only difference I see in the package between the two seasons, and it's made for the racing to be a little more, a few more crashes, cars flipping, so forth, because of the cars are, the packs are a little bit tighter, if you can believe that. It looks the same, but out there in the car, you can definitely sense a little difference.
Go to your right to Claire, then to Bob, and then to Nate, and then to Kenny.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Two quick things. It was really fun watching the drivers watch the throwback race last night, and I wonder at your observations and what you saw and how you enjoyed that. And then I hear that there's a driver council meeting tonight, and I'm wondering if you have anything particular on the agenda or that you'd like on the agenda.
There's a couple things, but nothing crazy. There's the a lot of the stuff that we were loud about earlier has been cleaned up, and a lot of changes have been made and improvements have been made that the council's wanted. And so the conversation in the council over the last couple of months has actually been real quiet. And so this meeting rolled around, and it's kind of a business as usual feeling to it. We're going to talk about a lot of the same things. I guess we'll talk about the Unlimited, the Clash, whatever you want to talk about it, what to do with that race. All-star formats and little things like that, but there's no big ticket item that really stands out to me. I thought that the security on pit road last week was pretty bad during pre-race, and we'll talk about that some. Some of the drivers are concerned with how messy that's getting, considering what's going on and what we're trying to get in the cars and all that stuff. It was pretty crazy down there. It's great to see that much energy, but some tracks seem to be able to kind of corral it and control it a little bit better and give the crews their space to work around the cars and so forth. So that's something I think some of the drivers are real concerned with, but nothing too out of the ordinary that it's going to change the sport too much. The throwback was great. I really enjoyed that. I felt like it was a neat treat. I was pretty humbled by the idea of the network showing the race and appreciating what we accomplished, and it was fun to think about it and talk about it and watch it and see the comments, and so that was very fun for me. So I appreciate it. I hope that I know a lot of the guys that were involved in that victory were watching and we were communicating with me, and so it was a special night.
Go next to Bob.
Bob Hockris, ESPN. Do you take any sort of different approach when you have a new car, unlike a kind of a car that you really loved that you had before? And before you left the property, did you kind of wave goodbye to Amelia at all or anything like that?
Yeah, no, we're not going to be naming cars anymore. I knew as soon as we did that that thing sort of took off, and and put a lot of pressure on that car and the team. But these cars just don't stick around long enough to get names, and you used to race cars for years and years, and they sort of show personality. But you race a car these days. You only keep a car for maybe a year before it's unrecognizable or it's cut out of the herd. And we had so much success with that car last year that we ran it this year, and we probably shouldn't have. There's newer ideas and theories and better ways to do things that car didn't have. But we assumed, hey, it was doing so well, why wouldn't it keep going? But it seems like over the off season, there's just so much improvement and gains made by every organization that you can't afford to rest on what you did the year before. And anyhow, we'll see how this car does, and see what we got some good direction on going, trying to improve, and built this car with some newer ideas, and hopefully it's going to go out there and be quick.
Go to Nate, then to Kenny, then to Reed.
Nate Ryan, NBC Sports. Following up on Claire B's question, Dale sort of playing the house organ here, but that race on NBCSN, the race replay, was the #1 trending topic on Twitter within an hour of it starting. So I guess the question for you would be kind of two-part. One, how many times or how recently had you watched that race start to finish, and was it even more surreal to watch it when everybody you were on Twitter with was talking about it, seemingly?
Yeah. When we won, a lot of them races we won, Twitter and social media wasn't really around back then, so it was pretty fun having that instant communication and discussion and dialogue with the social media platforms that we have today. while you were watching that, it felt like I was in a big room with everybody watching it together. And so that was great. I thought it was a good experience, and one that I hope that they continue to try. I love the old stuff, and I think it's the fans enjoy those iconic races and moments in the sport, and there's so many to choose from. So I think it's pretty fun, especially I really didn't plan on watching the race, but it just so happened that I was sitting in the house with nothing to do. So if they get the drivers that are involved in those events to sort of play along on social media, I think it adds to the experience for the people watching, and the driver who in my case, I think if you won the race, it's certainly exciting to be a part of that experience and what was going on last night. I've watched it before several times. I've watched a lot of my old races. One of my favorites to watch is the All-Star race, the 500 wins, the 04 500 win. I'll probably watch it more because it's older, and I like to sort of refresh my memory of what went on. I watched that. I guess me and Letarte watched that. I'll watch that 2001 win a couple years ago when me and him were still working together, or maybe one night at the house drinking beers. I put it on, and we watched it. And he was joking with me about it as it was coming on last night that we were going to watch it again. So I thought it was great, and like I say, it was super good treat for me. I was super humbled by how everybody plugged in and everybody. It's great to be reminded about stuff like that, and that was a special night. So I'm glad that people think it's cool.
Go to Kenny, Reed, Greg, and then Holly.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Who I worked for there for a minute. You mentioned confidence earlier in your opening comments, talking about how the car can really play a role in that. But we come back here to Daytona now. We're basically the halfway point of the season. Where is your confidence personally at this point? Because there's been talk about all the guys that were in the chase last year have a win now. You're the one that doesn't. You've had good runs, but you've had some runs that obviously weren't up to par for you guys. Where do you feel like you stand right now?
Yeah, we're a little frustrated with how we ran through the month of May, and we've seen more speed out of our cars and had some bad finishes, wrecks, and so forth. Tore up a lot of cars this year. Uncharacteristic, I think, for us to be in so many accidents. So where we are in points is very frustrating. Creates a lot of anxiety between me and Greg. I think that we both are, not happy with where we are in the points, and we're, wondering and worrying about trying to make the chase. Shouldn't be something that this team's concerned with, because I think we're way better than where we are. In the past several years, we've sat around the top 5 in points throughout the season. Things just came easier for us. They're not coming so easy today, and we just got to keep working. I'm not worried about our speed or really where I don't feel like that we're missing anything, or I think we had a really fast car this past weekend at a place where I really don't like the race and don't really think I'm very good at. But we went to Michigan, and I thought we had a fast car. We just didn't get a chance to see it and get up there and see where we could go with it. So I'm not real worried about our speed, because I feel like we've had good speed over the last couple weeks. Certainly in May we didn't, and that was hard to do and frustrating. And hopefully we just get to Richmond, and we don't have a lot of pressure on us about trying to make the chase. Hopefully, we can put the string of races together that will give us a good cushion between us and the next guys fighting for those last few spots. Obviously, we need to get a win to put all that to bed, but nothing's guaranteed. If we don't get a win going into the chase, we're going to have to do well in these next 10 races and just be real consistent.
Go to Reed, then to Greg, and then we'll finish with Holly.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Before the repave here, conventional wisdom said that Talladega was the wide open track. This was the handling track. Since the repave, how similar are the races between the two tracks, and has handling become more of a factor here as the pavement starts to age?
It is starting to show some handling issues in the races. We really didn't see that for a very long time here. But I think a lot of us were really surprised how Daytona turned out and how the cars drove. It's real frustrating during speed weeks that there are a lot of practices, but the track never really gets to that race condition till Sunday. And it was a complete curveball for me and a lot of our cars and Hendrick as far as how the cars drove and how much handling was important to being competitive. So everybody was scrambling in the race, working on the balance, trying to get the cars to turn and do everything they needed to do because we hadn't had to worry about it before. So it's starting to crop up a little bit. You used to be able to get a good read on where you were when they ran the qualifying duels during the day, but that's not the case anymore. So we don't really have an idea at all what the cars are going to do till the 500 comes around. But this will be a little bit different because of the night race. Even though the temperatures will be up, the night will provide a little stability, and the cars won't. The handling issues won't be quite as severe if there are any, but the cars tend to be a little freer maybe or turn a little better at night versus during the day. So I think we'll still see some handling be a part of it, especially when we're all very close together. When you get around, when you're behind guys and you're really close, tight, side by side on each other's doors, which is what we have to do with the package because we're side drafting so much more today than we used to. When you're around there in those tight boxes with cars all around, the air on your car, the downforce on your car is so little that you can spin out or get tight very easily, and you have to be very careful. So that's becoming an issue, which is good. We loved when this place was slick and bumpy. I mean, the bumps were getting kind of severe in some spots, and the asphalt was coming up in some places. But that was a great challenge, and that gave the crews and the crew chiefs a challenge to get the cars to drive well and handle well. And everybody would haul butt for 5 laps, 10 laps, and then about lap 20, you'd start to see the cars that were handling move toward the front. And it was great. It was a lot of fun. So I'm excited that the track's sort of easing that way. Not as fast as we'd like, obviously, but the technology these days with the asphalt they put down is so much more impressive than what they had in the 90s and the 80s. So these tracks are certainly not aging as fast as they used to.
Greg Engel, Examiner.com. Going back to Claire B. Lang's point and talking about the council, you were talking about pit road last week before the command. What would you tell a new fan or your fan or any NASCAR fan who's coming to a race? When's the best time to approach you, and when's a time that not to approach you? And as a quick follow-up, I'm from Orlando, and obviously we live, you're close here to Orlando. You're running the Orlando United stickers this weekend, and could you talk about that? Thanks.
Yeah, it was a terrible tragedy. I'm glad that the sports got the stickers on all the cars. I think it's a great way for us to show our support. It's not really about when. It's not really about when to be approached by a fan. As long as I've been around the sport, it's just an open policy. You see a driver, you walk up and ask for autograph. You want one. I think, though, what we want or what the drivers are concerned about is just a more defined area around the cars so that our guys can get in there and effectively get the tire pressures right and get the cars ready to go. And there's, like I said, there's some tracks that are doing a really good job of that. I just, for whatever reason, when we come down pit road in the trucks to get to the cars, it was just, there was no definition on where people needed to be, to create some lanes of access for even the trucks to get down through there, and us to be able to get our cars and stuff. So,
Generally overall during the weekend, when's the best time and not the best time to put?
I think the best time I'm gonna be the best time to find me is during practice when I'm around the car, and I'm in the I'm gonna come out of the hauler and get in the car at about 10 minutes before practice. That's a great time. I'm gonna get out of the car after practice and go to the hauler. That's another good time. I'm gonna go sit in the hauler in between all that. So I'm in that hauler all day. I don't really come outside the hauler much other than to get to the car. So those are good times. I walk in between. I walk to the bus after practice or before practice. That's a good time. That's usually about 30 minutes before practice. I don't know. Not every driver's the same. Some drivers get here sooner. Some guys maybe not as on time. I used to come. I can't even believe it thinking about it now. But when I drove with Tony Jr. and Tony Sr., I used to show up 5 minutes late to practice. I can't even imagine how keeping a job doing that these days. But
Well, to keep it on time, we'll go next to Holly.
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. This kind of goes back to something that you said earlier, and I think with restrictor plate racing, some people really like them and some people really don't. And I would think that you are okay with them at the very least. Is there something to be said for that, especially, when they come here, you might feel like this could very well be the way that you get into the chase, and other people are like, I don't even want to be here, much less think about it.
yeah, I think that some drivers feel the way I do about road course racing, about plate racing. They just don't want to do it, don't like it. I definitely come in here thinking this is a great opportunity to win a race. I've won 17 plate races in my career, I think, something like that. Maybe it's 10, six at Daytona and 4 here. So I've won 17 races here, counting 125s and Xfinity races and all that. But so this is a great place for me to get a win. So I got to come in there with that kind of confidence. But I know there's races where I've gotten out and just don't understand why we have this kind of racing. Why do we have why is the package like this? Does it have to be this way? Do we got to run 3 wide and crash on the last lap? It seemed like, when we had the car tomorrow, we wrecked on the last lap of the Talladega races every damn time we went there. And it gets so frustrating because if you weren't first or third or fifth, you were wrecking. You were going to wreck. And for the longest time, it was hard to understand that we're going to go to the racetrack and odds are we're going to crash. I'm going to work all weekend, bust my ass all day long, lap after lap after lap in the race, and I'm probably going to wreck. So that was hard to wrap your brain around, that this is life, or this was okay. And nobody thought it was weird, but for the longest time, that's the way it was. These cars, they crash and we crash, but it doesn't seem like it's every single race, at the end. But it's still frustrating when you seem like you can't avoid it. And there was a string there from like 2007 to 2012, like you couldn't avoid it. You just couldn't figure out what you needed to do to not be in it. And so it got real frustrating there at one point, but they changed. We got rid of the tandem. That was no good. And the racing, to me, has steered in a little better direction, something similar to what we had around 2001. And we still crash. We don't want to flip, but it's not as frustrating as it used to be. And I do enjoy when you get out there and you're doing everything right and everything seems to be like you're in a zone. That's a fun time, and that's a good time. When your guys, when you go out there and you run and you come back in and your guys go, man, can't believe you made that move. I mean, it's fun to go out there and do stuff. But it was rough there for a while, but it's definitely, I think this car and the changes we've made to get away from some of the things that we didn't like about plate racing there for a while have improved.
Well, Dale, really appreciate you taking the time today, and good luck this weekend.
All right, have a good weekend.